Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar from Aston University tonight. So today we're going to be discussing whether a degree or a degree apprenticeship might be the best route for you. So we've joined by two wonderful colleagues here, and I'll hand them over to you in a second just to get so they can introduce themselves to you. But please do add any other comments or questions into the chat, and we'll try and get through those, as well as our set questions for you that we've already got as well for today. Just to introduce myself, my name's Hope, so I'm the Student Recruitment Manager for the university. So myself and my team run open days. We also give information, advice and guidance to young people about their future options. And I'm very thrilled to be joined tonight by a couple of experts who are going to be giving their opinions on degrees versus degree apprenticeships to help you make the right choice. So first of all, can I hand over to Emma to introduce herself?
Yes, thank you, Hope. Hi, I'm Emma. I'm one of the admissions managers here at Aston, and part of my role is to read UCAS forms, also similar to Hope, help people make the right choices for their future. And I'm here today to help answer any questions if you've got about how to apply for a bachelor's degree.
Fantastic. And handing over to Olivia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Olivia Foster. I work in the Degree Apprenticeships team. I work primarily with employers who have apprentices with them, but I would be helping apprentices with the programs.
Fantastic. So we've got a couple of experts here for you tonight. So as I said, do just add any other comments or questions for them, and we'll try and get to them as well. So first of all, can we start with Olivia? So can you start to describe to us what is a degree apprenticeship, and also some differences between studying a degree apprenticeship and a degree?
Yes, of course. So a degree apprenticeship is an apprenticeship. You come out with a degree at the end of it. So an apprenticeship itself is your working. So it's the working route that you have. And it's for those who are already established in their career or school leavers. So essentially, it's a full-time job. You are studying within that job, and you're devoting about 20%. So that's 1 day a week to study within the workplace, and it's directed with the workplace. You're working as you're studying. So what you're learning, you can apply it directly to the workplace. The main differences, I would say, are that it's a job. So you apply for it as you would do a job. With the degrees, with an actual degree, you have more choice in terms of what you would be doing around that time. So with the job, outside of your learning for the degree, you would be taking part in the activities for the job. But if you did a degree itself on its own, you'd obviously have the time around that to schedule in your other activities that you're doing. For example, if you wanted to meet up with friends after a lecture, or you wanted to do some extracurricular activities, you'd be doing that and schedule it in with your own time.
Brilliant. So you've outlined a couple of the differences there, and I know there's a few different degree apprenticeships that are available, and obviously that varies from institution to institution. But what kind of areas do we offer at Aston in degree apprenticeships?
Yeah, so in terms of the degree level, the bachelor's degree level, so we have engineering programs, we've got management programs, and we've got audiology, health type programs.
Fantastic. And we'll go through in a moment how it's best to go and search for these different types of apprenticeships as well. But handing over to Emma now. So can a student apply for both a bachelor's degree level and a degree apprenticeship?
They can, yes, and we very much urge people to do so. So if you are torn between the two, you can apply for both. So through UCAS, you have 5 choices. So you can apply for all 5 choices through UCAS, just as you would do if you're not applying for the other route. So you get 5 choices through UCAS, and then you can also apply for as many DAs as you want to do. So obviously my colleague can explain how to submit those applications, but you can certainly apply for both. So you can submit the 5 choices through UCAS and also apply for a DA alongside that. And we very much would urge you to do that, just so you're keeping your options open.
Brilliant. So Olivia, can you kind of outline how is best to find a degree apprenticeship and where are the best places for you to look?
Okay, so with a degree apprenticeship, it's essentially a job. So it's actually the employer that you would go to. So if you were going to do a degree with Aston, you'd obviously apply directly to Aston. With a degree apprenticeship, you would go to an employer and they would then partner up with a training provider. So we are a training provider and we provide the apprenticeships and the program to the employer. So to apply for a degree apprenticeship, you would have to look to see when degree apprenticeship jobs come up. So you can look at the government Find an Apprenticeship site. I'll share some of the links in the chat in a bit for you. You could obviously look at LinkedIn, just type in apprenticeships, opportunities come up there. You could look at Indeed, job searches. You can obviously go directly to the company. So with the degree apprenticeship, you need to know what area you would like to work in. Obviously, you've got to stick with it because it's a job. So if you're interested in working with a particular company, you'd look on their website. Unlike a degree, you would actually live where you work. So you wouldn't come on, as you don't come to campus that regularly, you actually live maybe in your home accommodation or maybe at the place of work nearby. Sorry, where your place of work is nearby. So for example, if you're going to stay at home, you would have a look and see what companies are local, see if there's anything in terms of if it was manufacturing, you would have a look and see those manufacturing companies, have a look on their website, their careers section, look under there, see if they offer degree apprenticeships. And obviously you could actually contact some employers themselves and ask, do you offer a degree apprenticeship? And then they would speak to our team and see how we could set that up with them to be able to provide a degree apprenticeship. But essentially you apply for a job and with that comes the training.
Brilliant. And you mentioned the government website there. And is there a way to search and filter for different options that are maybe closer to home or further afield or national apprenticeships?
It's like a search engine for jobs like Indeed or any other kind of job search. But with that, you can look at a specific degree apprenticeship on there. So you can actually filter it by a specific one. So if it was a case of you want to do a specific manufacturing degree, you would search under there and then you can filter it. You can have a look at put in a postcode. You can see where's nearby, who's advertising at the moment. Similar to jobs, it is as they come up. So I can't say that all the opportunities will not be advertised at the same time because it's the same as job openings. So you would keep searching, keep job alerts on, etc., and keep applying them. So as you said earlier, apply for more than one thing, because actually if you want to do the degree and you would like to keep your options open, I would say apply for the degree. At least you've got that, and then you could apply for the degree apprenticeships as they come up before the program actually starts. Our programs generally tend to start in October with us, but obviously other training providers may have other start dates as well.
Great. And that's something very important to note as well, isn't it? Like you were saying, Emma, that you do have a strong application deadline as well for degrees. So for this year, the deadline is 29th of January to apply for an undergraduate degree, whereas a degree apprenticeship is a little bit different and can have different start dates throughout the year. So that's why it's really important to keep options open. So you spoke about the application process, Olivia. So how is that different? So so how is that different to applying for a degree?
Yeah, so it's the same as you apply for a job, essentially. So you would apply for a job directly with an employer. It's up to them how they select people. So I would say it's usually something like an application form. Then you'd have an interview. There might be an assessment centre. And then after that, they would be teaming up with a training provider. And then we would have our own criteria as well. So you would need to have the entry criteria with the training provider, but we work with the employer and they would work with us. So essentially it's sort of applying twice for the employer and the degree. But it is up to the employer how they work that. So, for example, it could be a case of, I spoke about school leavers and those within the career. If you're already with an organisation doing a role that would fit a degree apprenticeship, you would be speaking to your HR colleague, and then they would contact learning providers and see whether you fit the criteria and whether your role is one that you would be using the knowledge, skills and behaviours that you would have within apprenticeship within the role itself.
Fantastic. So it's very much, it could either be a CV that employers are looking for, or it could be an assessment centre, it could be interview skills that they're looking for in their candidates. So obviously that varies a little bit towards a degree. Emma, do you just want to briefly outline how to apply for a degree as well?
That's fine, yeah, no problem. So you'd have to apply through the UCAS website, so that's ucas.com. As I said earlier, you get 5 choices, so that can be 5 choices as part of one, just applying for one institution, or you can apply for one choice over 5 different institutions. We don't know where else you've applied, and we don't know whether you've applied for anything else alongside your UCAS application either. So it's very much something that is personal to you. You can decide where you want to apply, what course you want to apply for. All you'd have to do is on your UCAS form put the qualifications you've already achieved, so for instance your GCSEs or something along those lines, and also put the qualifications that you're currently studying. So for most it would be A levels or BTECs or something similar to that. You then have to write a personal statement, so that includes reasons why you want to study the course, things you've done outside of school that will help you whilst you're studying that degree, and any skills that you think that's helped that are relevant to the degree that you're studying, and your teacher or someone who works at the college that you're currently studying at would submit a reference as well. So that's something to speak to your college or school about. As Hope has already said, the deadline is fast approaching, so it's the 29th of Jan. So make sure you speak with, if you are currently at college or school, speak with your speak with people who look after the UCAS form to make sure that you haven't missed a deadline with them, and ask them for help if you have done. But yes, that's essentially the UCAS process. What I would say is the UCAS website is really, really useful. It does really outline exactly how to submit the form. So I would suggest looking at the UCAS website if you haven't already done so. And obviously my team are here to help as well, so we can pop the email address in the chat if you need it.
Great. And there are lots of different options that are available at universities, as well as kind of with degree apprenticeships as well. So I think it's now 50,000 different choices that are in the UCAS system. So there's lots and lots of different course options as well. Olivia, how competitive are degree apprenticeships?
Very competitive. Similar with the job, it's very competitive. Obviously getting paid as well, and you're doing a job, so it's the same as searching for a job, I would say. If you would like to study in a particular area, it would be something that you would be applying and having to make sure that application is CV and you've got experience, etc., to be able to get it, say, similar as you would do for a job. So it depends when you're leaving school, if that's where you are, what experience you have, what interests you have, and how much you would like to go into that apprenticeship and work for that employer.
Definitely. And same question to you, Emma, how competitive are university places?
Less so than a DA. It really varies per course as well. So if you're looking to study the likes of pharmacy or medicine, or the more I'm trying to think of more competitive courses, then they are going to be more difficult to get an offer for. So yeah, it really can vary from course to course. What I would say is, if you've got any concerns of whether you would get an offer, then it would be useful speaking to the team at the institution you're looking to submit an application for. So my team, for instance, we often get emails from applicants asking, I've got these qualifications, I've done this, I'm interested in this course, what are my chances? And it's useful just to get an idea of whether you would be successful. But for the most part, as long as you've got the grades that we're looking for, then there shouldn't be a real reason why you wouldn't get an offer for most courses, but it can really vary from course to course.
Okay. And are the grade requirements the same for a degree as well as a degree apprenticeship, Olivia?
It would depend on the programme. I would say it would depend, and it's very specific to the programme to compare them both. So you can obviously look on our website. I've shared it in the comments. So you would have to look there to see specifically that programme.
Okay, fantastic. So hopefully that gives you guys some idea about keeping your options open, about the different application process between the two routes. So we've spoken quite a lot about the kind of work experience element, obviously, of having a degree apprenticeship. Students are going out to work and are getting that kind of work-based learning experience. So Emma, if a student decides not to go down the degree apprenticeship route and go for the more traditional degree, do they still have the opportunity to do some work experience, and how do they go about getting that?
Yes, absolutely. So most degrees will offer what's called a placement year, or a year in industry, or some places call it a sandwich year. It really varies, but essentially it's an opportunity to get some work experience alongside your studies. So Aston, for most of the degrees we offer, have a compulsory placement year, which happen in the third year. Not all courses, but all courses do have the option to do a placement if it's not already a compulsory placement. As I said, it starts in the third year. So you do the first year, which is kind of getting the foundation of what the course is about. Second year, you start to really specialize in a particular area of that course. Then third year, you go on to a placement. So say, for instance, you do a business degree, you might decide that as part of the business degree, you want to become an accountant. You can then in second year start applying for placements in accountancy firms or something like that. Again, it varies from course to course. So if you do a course in engineering, you can apply for a placement in the engineering field. And we have a dedicated placement team at Aston who are there to help you apply. So it's very much like applying for a job, and you apply for various different placements, and you then spend your third year working in the area of your choice. So not only are you then coming out with a bachelor's degree at the end, but you've also got this 1 year work experience too. So the other thing you could do if you don't want to do a placement is also study abroad. So the amount of skills and the amount of the type of experience you can get when working or studying abroad is just as valuable as any other skills that you'd learned on a bachelor's degree. So that's something to keep in mind as part of your part of your thinking and weighing up pros and cons, that you can still get a work experience year in as part of your degree. And at Aston, we very much push students to do that because we do see the real value in getting that work experience.
Definitely. And I think it's something more that students always ask us when we're out and about, talking to them a little bit more, wanting to know what kind of added value they can have to a degree programme as well. So it's great to know that they do have the opportunity to do that placement year and get that experience too.
Yeah. And Aston, what I would say, we were the kind of like pioneers of the placement year. So we work with so many different companies, hundreds and hundreds of companies. So top of my head, you've got GlaxoSmithKline, IBM, Microsoft, Samsung, Network Rail, all these different companies we do work with, and we work with for many years. So it's a great opportunity for students.
It is, most definitely. So Olivia, coming back to you now, we want to talk a little bit about the kind of weighting of the study and attending campus, and as well as working on a degree apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. So how often do you come onto campus to study on a degree apprenticeship programme?
It completely depends on the degree apprenticeship. So it's 20% when you're on a degree apprenticeship that you would be devoting to your apprenticeship. your work-based learning with your employer. That could be time with us on campus. It could be something in your workplace, for example, shadowing a colleague on a particular skill. It could be a range of things. So in terms of on-campus days, depending on the course, it could be 1 day a month to a week a month. So it really does depend on that program itself. There is some online learning with that. And there's obviously, well, not obviously, because everyone's new to this, you might be on this. With an apprenticeship, you don't just do the academic degree, you also have the apprenticeship side, which is additional knowledge, skills and behaviours that you would be working towards. So with that, you have a skills coach. So your skills coach has meetings to check to see how you're getting on with your portfolio. They happen every 3 months with yourself and your employer as a minimum. So there is a mixture, but in terms of coming onto campus, it does vary dependent on the program. Obviously, with some programs, you might have practical using specialist equipment that would obviously be on campus, but with others, it might be less days on campus because that program doesn't need to necessarily use the specialist equipment, but you would be able to access the library online. But you are still doing your 20% a week. That would be within the workplace if you were not coming onto campus. So it'd be up to your employer whether you are in work with a colleague, shadowing meetings, learning particular skills or knowledge or behaviours, or whether you would be having access to maybe a study room with that employer that you would sit there and have a look and see the information you've learnt for university and see how you can apply that to the workplace on a project, for example.
That's great. And when students come onto campus, they're still very much part of the kind of student life side of things, aren't they? Even if they're not in for as long as traditional degree students.
Yeah, so everything's still available. It's just that it's more limited because obviously the time aspect. So you're working as well. So you'd be doing your normal working hours, whether that's 9 to 5 or dependent on the workplace. So it's the time that you have outside of that. So obviously, you haven't got the freedom that you would do if you were a student, because you might have, say, 3 hours between a lecture. You could decide whether you wanted to go to the library then or socialise with friends or maybe play football or take part in a society, etc. With work, you'd be going back to the workplace. So yes, you do. So you might meet people after the day. It'd be colleagues. I would say it's less... you have more opportunity. Well, you have the opportunity to socialize with your peers on the program, but they work professional, so it might be a case of their colleagues and peers rather than it's just a slightly different relationship that you would have probably.
That's great. And do you have any kind of idea? I know it will vary from program to program, but what the cohort sizes are like on a degree apprenticeship?
Yeah, it does depend. We might have 10, 30. Mm-hmm. It does depend on the program itself.
Whereas for Emma, that's a little bit different, isn't it, for a degree side, a traditional degree?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it will really vary depending course by course. So some courses you will probably potentially only have 10 to 30, and then other courses you're looking potentially 200 to 400. Really varies depending on the course. So yeah, obviously I'm happy to answer any particular questions on courses, but yeah, that is a big kind of variation depending on courses.
That's great. So we've gone over quite a bit of information here and hopefully given a bit of a balanced view of degree apprenticeships and degrees. But coming to you now, Emma. So when weighing up the pros and cons, what are the pros of doing a degree over an apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is that you are really leaving doors open. So as we touched on earlier, you get to pick from thousands of UCAS courses, and often these courses are longer. So you tend to do them over 3, maybe 4 years if you do a placement year with it. And they have a lot more variation in the different modules you can pick. So although you potentially could do a degree that feels like a very specialist degree, so top of my head, say like marketing, for instance, it doesn't necessarily mean you will going to do that particular job after you graduate, it will leave doors open for you because of the different types of things that you'll learn. Plus, you have more time to figure that out. So if you don't really know what you want to do at this stage, I'd say a bachelor's degree is probably more suited because you're not really tied in to a particular path. You can leave those doors open to think about what it is that you really want to do, and that can really change over the course of the time you're at university as well. So especially because of different type of people that you'll meet people who are outside of your course. If you live on campus, you potentially will be living with people doing different types of courses. You'll get to join clubs or different things on campus where you'll be exposed to different people, and you might be doing things in the future that you had never really thought about, and that might spark your interest too. So it really does keep those doors open for you by doing a bachelor's degree rather than the alternative route. The other thing as well, I know we've touched on it, but it really is something to highlight, is the experience you get while being a student, especially if you live on campus. Aston's a campus space, so you live on campus, you work on campus, you study on campus, everything is there, and there's a real homely feel. So you get to meet people really, really quickly, and you wouldn't obviously get that experience through doing the DA, although obviously you can come onto campus. Actually living and breathing campus is very different. So and you get more freedom as well. So some days you'll potentially finish at lunchtime, and then you have the rest of the day free to do your own personal studies, or go to the library and meet up with friends there. Whereas that's not something you would necessarily get if you are working Monday to Friday. So it's very different. Obviously, you still come out with a degree at the end like you would a DA, but the experience is quite a different one.
That's great. Thank you, Emma. And kind of same question to you, Olivia, as well. So finishing up with kind of the pros of an apprenticeship.
Yeah. So the pros are, it's a job. You earn as you're learning because your employer and the government are paying your fees. But with that, you need to know exactly what you want to do and that you're happy with it, because obviously it's connected to your job. You need to do both at the same time. You haven't necessarily got the flexibility that you would do if you were doing a straight degree, paying for your own learning as such. With that, it depends how you learn. So, for example, you'd be taking information away from your lectures that you have, or seminars, and you could actually have a look at the workplace and see how you can actually use that, apply it in the workplace, and you might be able to do some of those things, have a look at those things straight away. So it does depend how you learn, because it could be a case of, if you're more a practical person, then maybe a degree apprenticeship, or an apprenticeship itself, it doesn't have to be at degree level, might be best for you. So you need to have a think about the way you learn with that. Some people do prefer learning all the information first and then applying it. You would have early exposure to the industry, which means you would obviously have more work experience because you obviously build it up. But that would be in the role that you would be for the degree apprenticeship, because you've got to do a role that fits with that degree apprenticeship. So you wouldn't necessarily have the flexibility. For example, if you were doing an engineering one and you wanted to work in the marketing department, you would need to stick with the engineering one, because the things that you're learning are directly related to that. In terms of the benefits, yes, you do have a qualification. So you'll have, if you were doing a degree apprenticeship, you'll have the degree as a qualification. You'll also have an apprenticeship qualification. You have another assessment at the end, which is an endpoint assessment. So you would, once you pass the endpoint assessment, you would have that qualification, and you'd also have your degree qualification there. So you have to go through for the endpoint assessment there. An endpoint assessment is essentially you build up your portfolio of experience within the workplace, with your knowledge, skills and behaviours that would be explained to you. And you, depending on the apprenticeship, you would have essentially an interview that you would talk through your projects with that. The cons of it are really, you need to think about, is this actually what you want? Are you ready to go into the workplace? If you are currently working, as I said, it could be an apprenticeship that you'd be doing with your workplace that you're currently doing. But if you're a school leaver, it would be very different going from straight from a classroom based to a workplace. But that's entirely up to if you think, oh, actually, I could do this. So it would be different. You just need to know exactly, and this is kind of the route you want to take. As we said before, there's less opportunities that come up. But it is different. It's just a different path. So you have to think about, are you ready for work, and the commitment that comes with that, how you learn best and what's important to you. Yeah,
I was going to say, I think that's a very important message from both of you as well. So we've had some questions come through. So kind of looking at maybe like the financial side, because I know that's a big thing for young people at the moment, and looking what types of support is available. So Olivia, the big question is, how much do you get paid as an apprentice, and is there any financial support available too?
Yeah, so it's a job. So the different rates of pay for an apprenticeship. So if you were age 16 to 18, which I presume the people would be on this call, the national minimum wage for an apprentice is £6.40 an hour. If you have a look on the government website, you can have a look at it. It does depend on your age and first year, if you're in the first year of your apprenticeship. Some employers do pay more. So if you have a look at those job adverts, have a look at the rates of pay. That's the minimum that I'm quoting. It may be different from companies. I know some companies do pay more than that. So do have a look and ask if it's not advertised for the apprenticeship you're having a look at. Just make sure you ask to find out that rate of pay for yourself.
That's great. Thank you. Because I think we've had a question around, is a degree apprenticeship a scholarship?
No, it's different. So a scholarship would be money towards your study, and it might have certain terms to that, depending if the scholarship provider would like you to do it towards a certain degree. With an apprenticeship, there are more conditions to it because you're using government money and employer money for it. So there are more things you'd have to agree to in terms of when you're completing it. It is different.
And is there any financial support available, like there are student loans?
No, it's the pay. So you can't apply for a student loan for an apprenticeship. It would be the apprenticeship that would be your pay. So from your pay, that would, depending where you live, pay for rent if you were to move, or you might live at home and not have rent or have some sort of contribution towards it. So it is different, and yes, you do earn as you learn. However, the minimum is the national minimum. To have a look at the employers and have a look and see if, for example, if you saw one that's far away from your home or where you could live, have a look and see what the how much you would get from that and how much your rent or where you'd live, to make sure that you're able to do that.
Yeah, because that's definitely an important point now as well, isn't it? And Emma, is there financial support available for students on a traditional degree path?
There is, yeah. So obviously you've already touched on the fact that they can apply for a student loan. So you can apply for a loan to cover your fees. So that will be something that you haven't got to think about. Obviously you need to submit the application, but once that's submitted and you've got that degree, then you don't have to actually pay the university. That is something that the fee loan will cover, and you won't ever see that go into the institution. That would just go straight to them, and then you'll pay it back eventually when you're earning enough money. You can also apply for another loan, a maintenance loan. Is it still called that, Hope? Maintenance loan.
It is, yeah.
Which will cover your living costs. So you'll cover but if you're living away from home, and cover any additional costs that you might need to cover. I will pop in the chat as well the link to our scholarship page. We do have scholarships available at Aston. It can really vary depending on your circumstances, and there's quite a wide range of them, so I won't go into detail of what they all are here, but there are various scholarships that you can get as part of your degree, just to help cover any costs as well. So I'll pop that in the chat here. But if for those of you who don't have access to that, it's just on our website, so you'll be able to find that there.
That's great, thank you. So talking about timeframes now, so that's something we haven't actually touched on. Does it take exactly the same amount of time to do a degree apprenticeship as it does a degree, Olivia?
It's normally longer. It does depend on the program itself, because essentially you are studying, say, 1 day a week, a whole degree. So, for example, a 3-year degree with an apprenticeship with all the extra added work and your workplace actual work, it could be 4 years, for example. So it is different, yes. And obviously you'd be with that employer for probably longer than the 4 years anyway, because that's the path you'd like to do.
Mm-hmm. And Emma, for a traditional degree, how long do students usually study for?
Yeah, a minimum of 3 years. If you do a placement year, it would be 4 years. But yeah, most of the degrees are a minimum of 3 years. There are other options out there which you can do it slightly shorter. It's not something we offer at Aston, so I wouldn't be able to tell you an awful lot about it. But on the most part, it is at least 3 years, if not 4.
That's great, thank you. And we've had a really interesting question, actually, which is around what kind of work experience is rated highly by the employers for a degree apprenticeship. Now, I know this will vary again, Olivia, but could you try your best to answer that for this student, please?
It would depend on the role. So it'd be essentially looking at the job advert. So if you're going to go if you wanted to apply for the apprenticeship with an employer, have a think about your experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be work experience as such. Maybe you're part of, maybe it's an engineering apprenticeship that you'd like to do, and you're part of your school's robotic club, for example. That'd be something that you can improve, put down on your CV when you apply for it. I would say something that's connected to that apprenticeship, and obviously that workplace. Any kind of work experience, any kind of experience. As I said, it could be voluntary experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be work experience. Have a look around and see what kind of experiences you can gain in the field. Whether that's something at school that you can do in terms of maybe a club, maybe outside you could volunteer with a local community group, for example, or maybe there's a volunteering opportunity with a charity that you think would have a look. I would say have a look at some job adverts for apprenticeships, see what they would like for their for the skills that they have marked down, and then you can have a think, actually, if I was to apply for this one, maybe I'm not going to apply right now, but maybe if I was to apply for this one, what kind of things could I do to get some experience in that field?
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And is there any minimum amount of work experience before you apply?
No, it's entirely up to the employer. So it's not us as the training provider who decide on that as such. It's up to the employer. So employers do have apprentices straight out of school. They do employ apprentices straight out of school, but it's up to them what they're looking for. Whether I would say, obviously, if you're going to go for a job, you have to have a passion for it. So if you can demonstrate that passion by you actually have done something, is better than say, oh, I've read a book, for example, on this topic, I'm interested in it. It would be great if you, for example, you actually did something with that you could actually talk about in your interview.
Fantastic. Moving on to the application side again now, I've had just a couple more questions around that. So the first one is, can I apply directly to Aston for my degree apprenticeship?
Yes and no. Your employer essentially sponsors, pays for it, agrees to it. So we would ask, for your workplace. We'd have a contact from your workplace who'd be paying for this and signing up to the terms and conditions for it. So if you have a job, yes, then you apply to us, but you wouldn't apply to us without a job. If that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's great. If that doesn't do, feel free to add.
We're the training provider, not the employer. Mm-hmm. So you would have the job and then you would apply to us for the program. So for example, if you're in the workplace and you wanted to do a particular training program, you would ask the workplace. If you go on that training program, they'll agree it internally, and then you would apply to the learning provider, a training provider.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Like I said, again, that's an important difference, isn't it? Identifying the difference between applying to, say, Emma's team for the undergraduate degree and the degree apprenticeship, where you'd apply to the company you want to work for as well. Emma, you mentioned UCAS previously as a good place to do some research for degrees and traditional degrees. Is it possible to find apprenticeships on UCAS though?
Yes, I believe so. Whether Olivia might want to jump in a little bit more here, but yes, they UCAS do post the vacancies on their web page. Olivia, I don't know whether you want to elaborate.
Yes, so when I mentioned earlier the different places you can look for them, that's one place you could look for them. As I mentioned before, you can look at Find an Apprenticeship and bring up the gov.uk website. You can look at various employers directly. You can look at UCAS because the employers advertise with UCAS as well as their own websites. So you could actually just Find an Apprenticeship in Google, and your first page would actually have lots of options you can look at. But yes, there are them with UCAS. You apply for the employer through there. There are adverts on there.
Thank you very much. And Emma, we've just had another question in about the deadline for personal statements and UCAS applications to Aston for this year.
Yeah, so the deadline's 29th of Jan. So the personal statement forms part of the application form. So you can't normally submit an application without a personal statement. So yeah, you wouldn't submit a personal statement separate to the UCAS form. It's all part of the UCAS form, if that makes sense. If you feel like you can't meet that deadline for whatever reason, I would suggest reaching out to the institution that you're looking to submit to, because often they might leave their courses open and you might be able to apply after the deadline. But you would have to make sure that you would have to ask them to check that first.
That's great. And we've got lots of personal statement advice as well on our website, haven't we, as well as on UCAS to help.
Absolutely, yeah, UCAS and also our website. So Hope's team do a fantastic job in personal statement support. So please do take a look at that if you need any support on how to write a very good statement.
That's great. So looking at the kind of difference in assessments as well. So is there a difference in assessment between the degree apprenticeship and a degree? So the question is, are there exams in a degree course? And are they mandatory in every degree course, especially cybersecurity? Because that's what the student's considering to apply for.
It again varies from course to course. I would say the majority at Aston is probably a 50-50 split. So I'd say 50% exams, 50% coursework or other methods of assessment, such as presentations or something like that. What I would say is check the UCAS website, because it does have a section about how every course is managed. So I think if I look at cybersecurity on the UCAS website now, it's 50-50, especially in the initial 2 years. So it's 50% coursework and 50% exams. And then sometimes when you go into final year, you'll do like a bigger piece of work rather than sit down exams. But I think that again it can really vary. The biggest tip I'd say is go onto the UCAS website, and it will tell you how that course is kind of ran and managed. If for some reason it's not on there, then feel free to contact us and we can answer that for you. But for cyber security, it's 50-50.
That's great. And for degree apprenticeships, Olivia, is it any different?
Yes, because they're working in the workplace as well. You will have some exams, depending on the program. There'll be exams. You'll also have project work as well. You'll definitely have project work. The exams are dependent on the course. It's a mixture, I would say. The assessments are different because you're in the workplace. It's a mixture. I said I've just put the link for the degree programs that we offer in the link, so that in the chat box, that someone can have a look at directly. And for the digital degree that the George has asked about there, but you'd have to ask us directly to find out what it is, because it does differ.
That's great, thank you. We've also got a question on if I'm accepted onto a degree, can I defer for a year? And then is that the same for a degree apprenticeship? So one for you both. We'll start with Emma. If I'm accepted onto a degree, can I defer for a year?
On the most part, yeah. And I'm going to say this again, but it really does vary on the course that you're interested in. But for the most part, you can, yes. So you can either at this stage apply for 2026 entry rather than 2025. That is an option on UCAS to do that if you want to do that. Or you can apply now for September entry and then contact the institution and ask them if you can potentially defer that once you get an offer. So the option is there, but it does vary. Some courses, so for instance, the medicine degree at Aston, for instance, wouldn't allow you to do that because you need to pass various tests and stuff before you get an offer. But for the most part, most courses would allow you to do that. Yes,
that's great. And Olivia, for a degree apprenticeship?
Yeah, we don't really have deferring as such with degree apprenticeships. It's a job, so you apply for the job, and it's up to the employer when you start the apprenticeship. So it would be up to the employer. So for example, if you said, actually, no, I would like to work in this role and I'd like to do the apprenticeship training next year, it's completely and utterly up to the employer, because they're paying for yourself, for your wages, and also the apprenticeship fees as well. With that, I would say that if you applied for a degree apprenticeship in the workplace, and you were doing something else and you want to do it later, if you didn't start, you would have to apply again, because the funding rules are different every year. So you would obviously have your application stored with us, but you'd have to go back and update it, because there might be different funding rules that we would have to make sure we've got all the evidence for. So it isn't deferring as such. It isn't as free as that, because you're in the workplace. It's up to the employer where they would like you to start your training. And when the training is available with the provider that they choose to partner with. It's less of a personal choice. It's up to the employer, because it's their role. They're obviously training you up to do a role. So they take you in, not experienced in that. And by the end of the apprenticeship, you'd be fully experienced and able to do the role that you've been employed to do, as in the progression within the workplace. So it isn't as free as saying, oh, I don't fancy doing this yet because I've got other commitments. It might be that you'd have to leave the workplace, and apply for a job later, or apply with a different company. It doesn't work quite the same, I'm afraid.
And on that point, are you guaranteed a job with the company that you've done your training with for a degree apprenticeship at the end of the apprenticeship?
It's not quite. You're employed, so you would have you'd continue with them, whether that's the same role or whether it's a different role. We do find that people tend to get promoted upwards, because they've obviously done the training to do a higher level role and then be promoted upwards. With a job, I don't necessarily, anything's guaranteed ever. It's because it's but I would say you're with them and you've been with them for 4 years on the program. They've invested in you. You would be carrying on with them, because you would enjoy working there. Hopefully you've been with them for 4 years, working yourself, working your way up, or enjoy doing the type of role you're doing that you aim to do at the end of the 4 years.
Thank you. And Emma, if students are still undecided but still thinking about maybe taking a gap year or deferring, what is the best advice for them to do with that year?
If they were to not start this year?
Yeah, if they were going to defer a year or take a gap year, what kind of things do you think they could do? within that year?
Yeah, I would say it's a real personal preference. We do have quite a lot of students who do think, you know, I've got this offer, but I don't want to take it yet. So a lot of people do actually take it a year out to really think about whether they want to start their degree. Most people take a gap year. They would get some work experience, or if they've got a part-time job now, potentially ask them if they can continue and work for a year just to get a little bit of money behind them before they start doing their degree. Those who are lucky who can afford to travel, some people do. So we do have quite a few people to say, I want to go and explore, and that's fine as well. I would say it doesn't matter to us necessarily what you do. It won't go against you in any way if you don't work or if you decide to travel. It really is a personal choice. To be honest, we don't know what you get up to on that gap year. But the biggest thing I would say is you won't be able to start another degree whilst you're holding an offer with us. If you were to defer from Aston, that's not something you'd be able to do because the UCAS system wouldn't allow that. But if you hold an offer with us and you just want to go and explore your options for a year, that's absolutely fine. What I would say, because Aston has the placement year, you could spend that year thinking about what kind of thing you want to do on your placement as well. So you might want to explore different jobs that are out there. So you come armed when you start your degree with what type of placements you want to look at when it comes to that time as well.
Thank you. We just had a follow-up question about the application process for a traditional degree. So where will references be attached to the UCAS application form from the school or college?
It's all on the UCAS form. So if you're at a school now, so if you're still at school and you're studying towards your A levels or whichever that is, speak to your school and then they would add the reference for you to the UCAS form. So you would give them the details of your UCAS form and then they would be able to upload that reference for you onto the UCAS form. If you've already left school or college, then there's a way around of doing that as well. So you can again speak with the person you want to give a reference, and they can still upload it for you. The other thing I'd say is if you absolutely can't do that, if they can't log on to UCAS for you to add the reference, there is a button you can press that you can submit without a reference, but you will have to submit that via a different means, so usually by email to the places that you've submitted an application to. You won't be able to get an offer without a reference. So but there is definitely different ways you can do that. It varies on your circumstances. The biggest advice I'd say is speak to UCAS, and they can obviously tailor their answer depending on what your circumstances are and tell you what the best way to do it is.
Thank you. And the final question is from Camille. So this is one for you, Olivia. So is the application success rate higher for degrees and degree apprenticeships? And is that simply because of popularity or competitiveness?
There are more spaces on a straight degree. Apprentices with jobs, so obviously there's limited amount of roles within the job, so they're less available. I would say it's availability. There's more spots available for being on a traditional route than going into the workplace as an apprentice directly. In terms of the success rate, that would depend. You'd be applying directly to employers, so you'd have more than one application. So if you saw 5 employers who would be running the apprenticeship with the degree that you'd like to do, you'd be applying to 5 separate employers, and then obviously your chances are with them and who else applies for it there. You don't just do the one application as such, and then you would apply to us. So obviously you'd have a look at, the employer chooses who they're going to partner with, but you could have a look at that to see who the when the job advert is there, you could actually have a look and see who is the training provider. Then you could do your own research, have a look at the training provider, and see what they're looking for in the apprenticeship. They normally include the entry criteria that we would have for our programs within their entry criteria, but you'd be doing that in terms of your research for that.
That's great. Thank you both. So we're going to wrap up the webinar now. So thank you very much to Emma and Olivia, and thank you to everyone who is attending tonight. Emma and Olivia have put a lot of really useful links into the chat for you to have a look at. So that will detail more information about Aston's degree apprenticeship offers, Aston's degree offers as well, to hopefully help you make that decision. But whichever route that you do end up going down, we wish you the very best of luck with whichever choice you make for your future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.